Today I'm going to talk about what to do if you get a new build of the system that you're testing and all of a sudden your RPT test script doesn't work anymore. And in development that's pretty common because you get new builds and something has changed and something that you were depending on, a correlation, a reference you were depending on has changed, and so your script doesn't work anymore. So it's time consuming to rescript. And so I'm going to go over a method for updating a script as opposed to re-recording it and starting from scratch every time you get a new build of the system that you're testing. Now with rules, rescripting is easier than it used to be, but that assumes you have a complete set of rules that covers everything. The steps in updating a script are: you run the old test, you see where it fails, you record a new script or use Fiddler or Wireshark to look at network traffic, figure out what's changed, then copy what's changed from the new recording into the old script.
Let me repeat that while showing you a little graphic.
And copy what's changed from the new recording into the old script. And then change the old correlation. So take the old script and change the correlation to use the information that you copied from the new script. So what I'm looking at here is I did a run with a new build and I see that I'm getting a 2% failure rate. Something is not working. So I need to look at the result by looking at the test log. So I'm going to display the test log, and I see that I got a failure in the test. So I'm going to click on the error and go right to it, and I can see that I got a 401 status code. So something about that URL that I fetched is no good. And I can see that the login failed. In the upper right hand corner of this screen you can see a link to the script itself. So if you click on that link, it'll take you directly to the point in the script where this URL comes from, and you can see that here. It's common CSS is the URL, and if you right click on the URL itself, right mouse button on the URL itself, you get a context menu which says go to the place where the reference is. So if you click on that reference, I'm looking at this URL, it takes you to the page in the script that reference came from. That's where the substitution originates. This is the reference that is getting substituted for the failing URL. So the combination of a reference and a URL where it's substituted I call a correlation. And this is the place in this script that the change code needs to be pasted. So once we know what a new recording would look like of a new system, then the new reference would get pasted here. And I'm going to make a new test from recording. So I'm going to record my new system just up to the point where I had the failure. What I'm trying to do is look at the network traffic and look at what's changed. So you don't have to use RPT for that, but I find that it's pretty easy because RPT remembers everything that you recorded. And this is an older version of RPT. This is an old presentation that I did, and in this version of RPT they had this annotation toolbar right in the browser. Right now it's in 8.5 it's a separate pop-up, but in the old days it used to be integrated into the browser. So I'm showing is that I'm going to record a script and I'm going to add a comment and name every page that I go to so I can remember what page I went to. So first I'm going to record that comment. And the reason for recording a comment and then naming the page is that with Web 2.0 you can have on mouse over events. And this will help you detect on-mouse over events.
Using a comment before clicking on a link and then naming the page after the page has arrived also helps you detect when a page has taken a long time to arrive and RPT has split it into two segments.
So now I went to the default home page. I'm going to name the page, and now I'm going to get the login form. So I'm going to put a comment, and then I go to the login form, and I'm going to go to the login form, and I name the page. And now I'm going to log in and name the page. And now I'm looking at the re-recorded script, and I'm finding the same line that failed, which was for common CSS. Let me mention one other thing that could be useful while you're searching through the scripts. If you know the name of the URL you're looking for, like common CSS in this case, you can go to the script itself, and there's this filter box, and you can type in what you're looking for in the script, like common.css, and it will filter the entire test script and show you just the part that you need. And so I'm going to find the URL in the re-recorded script. So I'm going to copy the URL that was recorded when I re-recorded it against the new system. And I'm going to try to find out where this came from in the new system. So I'm going to search for that URL in the page, and it turns out that this is the string I'm searching for. And I found a number of matches, and I have to find the one that's associated with common CSS, because that's in fact the one that I care about. And there is one right there, and that looks like a likely match. And so I'm going to go to the content of that page. You double click on it, it'll take you to that page. And this is where the URL needs to come from in the new system. So I found that location in the re-recorded script. Copy the entire reference, and then I'm going to paste it into the old script, into the page. This is the page from the do login that the new code gets the reference from. And I copy the entire link from the new recording into the old page, and I put a little comment in there that indicated that I copied this, pasted it into the old script. And now I'm going to highlight that reference to common CSS in the old script that I just copied there, and I'm going to create a new reference, and I give it a name, and I'm going to create a reference. Now by default it's creating a reference that says find the 79th href on the page, and that is terrible. That's very flaky. It might change in the next build. So I need to come up with an href that finds something more exact. So I'm going to modify the regular expression so that it finds this specific href. And to do that, I'm going to put common CSS, which is part of the URL, into the regular expression. And once I do that, it finds the first reference on the page. So now my regular expression is exact enough. So I'm finding a specific href on the page. I'm finding the one I want to find. So I say OK, and that created a reference. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to the URL that failed on playback, and I'm going to remove the substitutions that's currently there because it doesn't work. This is a substitution that failed when I played the old script back against the new system. So I'm going to get rid of the old substitution, and I'm going to make a new substitution, and I'm going to substitute using the reference I just created. And I created that by manually copying a line to the page.
And creating a reference and a substitution.
Then I'm going to run it, and I see that it succeeded because now do login indicates that it succeeded. And it expected a 200 response code, and it got a 200 response code, and it succeeded in all the other verifications. So the steps in updating a script are: you run the old test, see where it fails, record a new script, figure out the line that changed, copy the changed information into the old script, change the old correlation, and repeat that as many times as you have to until you get the script working. And presumably that's going to be less work than rescripting everything from scratch. And that is going to be the case if the changes are small. If it's a massive change and your system under test is completely different than it used to be, then this is not faster. But if it's just a one-line change, a small change to an href, for example, in this case, this is much faster. One other important point that I accidentally illustrated in this demonstration was that it's important to get the full URL for substitutions when you get a reference. In this case, I got part of the URL in the original test case, and that worked for a while, but it wasn't the real place where the common CSS URL came from. And when I fixed the code, I did a substitution that was for the entire URL. And that's more likely to keep working. So the point is that you want to get the full URL from one reference if you can. And you don't want to break it up into little parts and get a piece from here and a piece from there. You want to try to simulate what the browser's doing, get the URL from the point in the HTML where the browser would figure out where to get it from. And that's what broke here. And that's important for web portal scripts. That's important for testing other products as well. Get the full URL from one place in the HTML. Don't get a part from here and a part from there, and do the substitutions piecemeal, because that's just more likely to break, which I demonstrated. To summarize, what I went over in this lecture was I showed a shortcut, a little trick, a little tip for updating a script without completely re-recording it. And I also showed the filter dialog, which shows up a number of places, and it allows you to filter out items that you want to look for. And finally, I went over a best practice for doing correlations, which says don't get little bits and pieces of the correlation from here and there. Try to find the entire URL on the page and substitute the whole thing.